That's it.
Justice Barrett?
Just a few clarifying questions. First is, I just want to be sure that I understand. You are asking for a rule that is different from Boyle, because do you agree that if we just applied Boyle, because there is not the one-on-one conflict, the air conditioner hypothetical, you would lose? So this is something that's different from Boyle that you want?
It's different. Yes, it's different from Boyle.
Second, can you just say a little bit what the scope of the combat exception is? I mean, you said that Bagram was under siege constantly from rockets, et cetera. That's certainly not true of every base abroad, but you could still have terrorist attacks. So how is a court supposed to decide when your proposed exception would apply?
So under the tests that we've supported and the government has proposed, for the first element, you would look to the text from the combatant activities exception. And so is it any claims arising out of combatant activities in time of war? And the first decision after the adoption of the FTCA, the Ninth Circuit and Johnson interpreted combatant activities and said it includes not only physical violence, but also actions necessary to and taken in connection with. And every court of appeals has kind of relied on that test, which seems consistent with the plain language. And so courts would look to that. It is the activities, are they, supporting, arising out of, supporting the military's combatant activities? Here, this is at the heartland, right? These are injuries from an enemy attack.
But that's surely pretty broad. I mean, Justice Thomas was asking you about, the food services and an E. coli outbreak. I mean, supporting the military's activities, I mean, that is pretty broad. And it seems to me that if you want courts to look at the combatant activities exception from the Federal Tort Claims Act, we're right back to this question of, is what you're really asking for a virtual extension of the text of that exception? So
I would, the hypothetical I got was the E. coli on Bagram, and I would say, yes, it may be a different conclusion, E. coli in San Diego, or a base to troops that aren't ready to deploy. It's not, every base is not looked at the same. The actual injury is examined to determine its connection to combat activities, which is not viewed as everything the military does. And so you would have a much more limited scope of protection at US-based military bases. That's not to say that there aren't things, because there are things going on at US military bases right now that are connected to combatant activities. But what I was saying in response to the earlier hypothetical is that everything, if not everything, virtually everything going on at Bagram in 2016 because of the way it was under attack.
So it could potentially extend to domestic activities if they were supporting the combatant activities abroad?
It could.
Okay.
It would. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, well, that's okay. You don't need to say anything more. And just finally, do you see yourself as standing completely united with the government's understanding of the rule, or do you see any differences between your position and the government's?
We support the government's position. The way it played out, some of the courts of appeals have adopted a slightly different rule than the government, but there's not a lot of daylight between those rules, and we see benefits in the government's rule.